It's fair to say that 2024 has been a very difficult year for Sergio Perez. At the time of recording this on the 10th of December, there has been no official announcement as to whether Sergio Perez will be replaced at Red Bull for the 2025 season. Officially, at the time of recording, he is still set to drive for the team next season with the potential option of another year in 2026. I will be stunned if he manages to see his contract out personally. He's been performing poorly for some time now. 2021, he did a good job in my opinion. 22, he was okay, I suppose. 23, he wasn't good. But this year, he's been downright abysmal. This has been his worst year by some distance. He signed a new contract in Monaco, and ever since then, it's really been downhill. So let's have a look at this, guys. If Sergio Perez does get fired from Red Bull, if he does get sacked, if he does get replaced, then these are the 5 races that were some of the leading causes for that decision. So let's dive in, guys, to the 5 races that might cost Sergio Perez his Red Bull seat in 2025. So as I alluded to in the intro there, Monaco was a very bad race for Sergio Perez. He signed a new contract with Red Bull to extend his deal potentially until the end of the 2026 season, earlier on in the weekend. But as soon as he hit the track in qualifying, things were not good. He qualified way down the order, right at the back of the field, around this track that is the hardest to overtake around in Formula 1 full stop, and we saw that in the race as well. Nobody could pass on track. It was unbelievably difficult. He had a very, very difficult task coming into the race, and it was just made impossible by the fact that at the start he was taken out by the Haas cars of Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen in a back of the field crash that, yeah, I can't remember if it was his fault at the time, but the fact he was down there at the back is very bad, and it's something that we see in some other races as well, like the last one I'm going to mention as well, where his poor qualifying has led to him being out of position on the grid and therefore more likely to get a crash, and that's exactly what happened. That's what happened in Monaco, being out before the first lap was completed. And it was doubled down on, in all honesty, as well, because the weekend after in Canada, things just did not get any better for him whatsoever. He crashed out in the wet conditions this time as well, all while his teammate Max Verstappen won magnificently, in my opinion. I don't think he had the fastest car that weekend, but Max, in the wet conditions, like we'd see later on in the season in Sao Paulo, Brazil as well, he's an absolute master of that, and he won the race in the end relatively comfortably, I think it was. He stormed through the field to get that win, get another win at the start of the season, something that helped see him through in the Drivers' Championship, something that Perez, just couldn't do. Out in Canada, it was a really, really bad result for him. But let's head over to Azerbaijan next, and this is a very much another avoidable incident, in my opinion. Carlos Sainz and Perez tangling in the final stages of the race. Basically, they were battling over third place. For once, Perez was looking like getting a first podium since I think it would have been China, which is still his final podium, by the way. The 5th race of the season is the most recent time that Perez has got a podium. He's miles behind even Sir Lewis Hamilton in 7th place in the Drivers' Championship because of that. But he was looking like getting back to win, not back to winning ways, but getting a good performance and beating Max Verstappen out on track for once, something that hadn't happened in years at this point, probably, in a straight fight. But unfortunately, Perez tangled with Carlos Sainz, and this was an incident that, in my opinion, was avoidable for both drivers. I think that if they wanted to, both these drivers could have avoided this crash. Neither wanted to, but it cost Perez more in a sense because, he was so under pressure at that point, and even getting a 4th place, I think, would have been a good result for him. But as it was, he was in the barriers, out of the race, and nil points for the Mexican in that one. Speaking of Mexico, oh boy, what a terrible weekend that was for Perez. You thought maybe going into his home weekend that he'd be able to, get a good result. He's got a podium there in the past. He's raced very well at times around Mexico. He's got the crowd behind him. He's got to get a points finish at least, surely. No, 17th. He got 17th place. He was battling with Liam Lawson to get into the edge of the points early on in the race. And again, in my opinion, another needless incident. I think Lawson actually got the penalty for this one, but he shouldn't be down there anyway, and he shouldn't be battling with Liam Lawson like that. He shouldn't be getting the elbows out so much. But at the end of the day, Lawson and Perez did not get on at that point, and Lawson ironically could be the guy that takes Perez's seat for next year, but we'll see what happens there. And the final one really is Abu Dhabi, and I just want to highlight that because it was just a really, he was, don't get me wrong, he was awful in Qatar as well, but the fact again that he crashes out on the opening lap. This incident wasn't really his fault, really, it wasn't his fault that he got took out. I don't think so anyway, but again, being down there in the midfield, he got into Q3 for a change, but he was behind Valtteri Bottas's Sauber on the grid, so I know Bottas had an amazing time in qualifying, but to be out-qualified by a Sauber, the worst car on the grid usually. That's pretty embarrassing, and yeah, out on the first lap. And that could be the last time that we see Sergio Perez in a Red Bull. It could also be the last time we see Sergio Perez in Formula 1 full stop. But we'll see what happens, guys. You know, they're going through the young driver test now as I record this. Yuki Tsunoda's in the car for Red Bull. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Apparently, they're going to make a decision with the shareholders after the results of the young driver test have been completed. So we'll see what happens, guys. But what do you think that Red Bull should do with Sergio Perez? Should they sack him? Should they keep him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, keep it subscribed to the F1Chronicle.com to see much more content on the world of Formula 1 just like this.